So hello everyone, and let's get started ahead in the more of Docker. So what we have learned in the previous video, so we have created the images of Docker hello world. Okay, and so later on we just give the name for that images and running on the images. But that was a very basic image to be run to a system. So right now what we are going to do, we are going to pull another images as well from the Docker hub, and we are trying to run into a system. Okay, and understand how other images are working and how we can work with the other images as well. So for this example, so I have the one image called nginx. Okay, so I'm just go ahead and open this one. So you can just either search from here nginx, or you can able to also see in the Docker hub registry. Okay, so I just open in the new tab. And what is the nginx? So you can able to serve your website using the nginx. So it is a web server. So there are similar servers as well, like Apache and HTTPD, but nginx is most popular ones and most used one in the industry. So I just take an example and show you how you can use the nginx into a system, and let's check it out. And later on we can use into our projects as well, and how we can deal with the different images. So right now, as you can see that if you want to run this image, so before the running the image, one thing I have to show. So once you install the nginx into a system, so default page. Okay, so once you install the nginx into a system, so you get by default this page like the welcome to nginx and this text. Okay, also you can just see here, let me scroll down, they have not mentioned it. Okay, so once you install nginx or run the Docker image of nginx, so you will get this type of page like welcome to nginx. So that's our main goal. So we are going to run the Docker image of nginx, and later on we can able to access this page or no. Okay, so right now go ahead in the nginx page, and I'm just going to copy this command and open the terminal, and here I'm just going to paste this one. Okay, so once you paste this command, it's automatically going to pull the nginx from the Docker registry. So as you can see that our image is successfully pulled. So let's check it out using the Docker images. Okay, and as you can see that the nginx image is successfully pulled. Okay, so everything is right, and let's clear all the things and let's run this image. For that we are going to use the same command like docker run, and you just mention your image name, that the nginx. So if you enter it, it's working, but here is the catch. So how we are going to achieve this? So let me show you. So if you don't have any idea about port, so what the ports means, so every single application is running on the specific port. The ports can be 80, 85, 80, 80, 3000, port 4000. So every application have their specific port to be run. So hence in our case what will happen, so as you can see that our application is working, but we are not able to access it. So let's try out and go ahead in the browser and search for the nginx port. So nginx port, so the by default port is not this one. Yeah, okay. So if you type the nginx default port, so it will be give the default port of nginx. Either you can search for the any service like the MongoDB. Okay, so it will give the default port of MongoDB. So every application have the specific port to be running into a system, but in our case we are using the nginx, so the port is running the nginx. So how we are going to access it? So you can just simply type the localhost colon and 80, and it's not going to work. Why? So if you enter it, but right now we are not able to access it because, so let me close this one. So as I mentioned earlier, so every images is run in the specific Docker container. So Docker container do not have directly access to your system, which means, so if you want to get inside the container, then you have to mention from which port do you want to access to your machine to the Docker container, which means if let's suppose this Docker container runs in the ports 80, and do you want to access the application from the port 80 or 85, so you have to map your system. What's your system? So this is current system. Okay, so this is your system, so you have to map your system with the Docker container. For that reason we are using the port mapping method. So using the port mapping, what will happen? So you can able to connect with your system, that's your current system, with the Docker container, because Docker container is running in a separate environment, so it does not directly get access. So hence, for that reason, we are using the port mapping method. So using the port mapping method, you can able to connect your system with the Docker container. So how it's going to work? So again, I am just go ahead in the terminal and clear all the things, and right now I am writing the same command, but there is a small difference here. So again, I am writing the same command like the docker run again, and I am typing the nginx, but after the run command, so after the docker run, you have to give the space, and here you have to use -p. So -p stands for the port mapping. So we are going to map the port. Okay, so Docker container of nginx is running in which port? It's running on the port 80, and I want to access the application using the port 85 from my machine. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. For that, what we are going to do right now, we are going to give a space, and I want to access the application 85 from my port. Okay, so I will add here the 85, then you have to use the colon and mention the port of the container. So what is the port of the container? The port of container is 80. Okay, so I am mentioning here 80, and once you enter it, so it's going to run the application. So again, you have to open the browser, and I have typed the localhost. Then you have to once you type the localhost, then you have to type the colon and mention the port here. So here, as I mentioned, so here as you can see that from port 85 I want to access from my machine, colon 80 is the container port of the nginx. So again, I'm just typing here the port 85, and if you enter it, so as you can see that we are successfully landed on the page of nginx. This is the by default page. So where it is, okay, yeah, so this is the by default page. Once you successfully run the Docker image of hello world, so not the hello world, the nginx image. So as you can see that we have successfully run this image. So let's suppose if you close this one, and if you try to refresh it, it's going to vanish. And again, what I'm going to do, again I'm using the same command, but from the 85 I will change let's suppose 88, and if you type 88, and right now 85 is not working it, and if you remove the 85 and type the 88, again our application is still able to access. So again, close this one, and you can use the 80 as well. So again 80 and colon 80. So as you can see that we are successfully able to access the different application or the different images using the port mapping method. So using the port mapping, we can just map the ports of different Docker container and able to interact in the browser. Okay, so this is a very easy tutorial, and you can get one step ahead in the Docker, because in the further videos we are going to use the port mapping method a lot. For that reason, I just take this tutorial for you. So I hope you all enjoy this lecture, and see you guys in the next video.